The world over, corruption in its different forms and expressions always wears very ugly definitions at various quarters. Strictly speaking, these are the expressions experts insistently posit to be associated with the hydra-headed monster, corruption. Drift, changing from sound to the state of putrefaction, state of becoming decayed, spoiled, deteriorating, perverted, open to criminality and bribery, not being genuine, full of error and rottenness, swindling, infirmity, injustice, make wicked, and a whole lot of others. When Nigerians historically on March 28, 2015 presidential election opted and voted for the emergence of President Muhammadu Buhari, a lot of reasons were adduced for it. But the obvious and compelling one was the fact that Mr. President has a personal hatred for corruption, which has been on the increase in the past years. Speaking also on the increased cases of corruption in the country, a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Olisaba Koba, who supported the ways the president could tackle corruption, said he, Buhari, must first have the political will to do so. Nigeria had been turned into a country of ironies. Issues were no longer treated on merit. Every leader follows his fancy, and Nigerians just tag along. There was no clear-cut national policy or direction. Today, Buhari's body and vocal language is war on corruption. Observers believe that clear cases that have become a scar in the nation's body politic should be visited and dealt with openly in the renewed crusade against corruption. Mr. President must maintain the entire strategy of this war and bring to book, as he has promised, whoever has ever stolen one kobo from the nation's treasury, and there should be no sacred cows. All Nigerians must be treated equally. What we need is a whole-scale reinvigoration of our non-judicial state institutions, such as the FIRS, ICPC, Police, Bureau of Public Procurement, offices of the Accountants General, Auditors General, Attorneys General, Corporate Affairs Commission, Land and Real Property Registries, the CBN, and others whose functions bear some nexus to nipping corruption in the bud.
You're welcome to yet another edition of your program, Towards a Greater Nigeria. I still remain your anchor, Omotayo Omotosho. For us to evolve a Nigeria of our dreams and, of course, move this nation forward, the issue of corruption must be addressed. And I say must. That explains why Mr. President himself has taken the bull by the horn, saying that one of the topmost agenda of his administration is war against corruption. Mr. President was mentioned that he cannot reconcile the staggering amount of stolen wealth against the abject poverty prevailing in the land of plenty. Indeed, the stolen wealth of Nigeria is very, very staggering. And yet, we are in a nation that is called a land of plenty. This takes us to this subject of tonight. And that subject is looking at the anti-corruption crusade of the present-day administration. And tonight with me in the studio is a political analyst, an economist, and a public relations consultant in person of Mr. Adefoloju. Mr. Adefoloju, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
Wonderful.
My very first question, some people say Nigeria is a mono-dependent economy, total reliance on oil, yet no appropriate data or information on the quantity of crude oil that has been lifted daily, weekly, monthly, or even yearly. This is inexplicable. The quantity that has been stolen since 1957 to date, I'm aware, is staggering. Should we continue to watch our Commonwealth being frittered away? Should this continue?
Pardon me, we should not. We cannot afford to stand aside and watch it happen. The present administration, President Muhammadu Buhari, did something that is un-Nigerian at Chatham House. Previous Nigerian leaders will pick and choose questions that they will answer. When he went to Chatham House, he personally, with no aid, with no earpiece, took questions from the audience, from the high to the lows, answered everybody's question in full and meticulously. He wrote down each question, attended to everybody's concern. That by itself is a different twist, a totally different body language for the polity of Nigeria. Our leaders are expected to be accountable to us. That was the first indication of the direction that this administration is going to be going. They will be answerable to us.
Leading by example, you would say?
Yes, indeed. He answered everybody. He is a reconstituted, reconstructed Democrat. In his previous military life, nobody would have dared to ask him those type of questions. In his present life, he answered everybody in full. Every other chief executive in Nigeria and their assistant ought to take a cue from him and answer us truthfully what you intend to do, when you intend to do it, and how you intend to do it.
So in relation to our oil, we need to know the quantity being lifted, where, when, all the data should be provided to us.
It is of the utmost importance that we have this information, because we will be going further backwards if we don't have this information. It is based on this information that we do our budgetary proposals, and it is the yardstick that we are going to have to meet, knowing how much we've earned and how much what we have lifted is being sold in international market. If we don't know this in the public domain, everything will remain in the dark as it had been. But we need to be much more transparent.
And the president is hammering on transparency now.
The president is leading. We have to do our own part by supporting him, by asking questions. What, where, when, and how. He has shown that he is willing to answer questions. Now we must now encourage the full political class to do the same.
A very simple question. Since the agenda of the government, at least one of the topmost agenda, is fighting corruption, can you tell us what does it take to be corrupt?
It does not take a lot.
Really?
The most important ingredient in being corrupt is nobody asking you any question.
So we, the masses that are not asking questions, all of us were also guilty.
We are collectively guilty of providing an environment that is conducive for corruption.
Tell us.
Before you were appointed a minister or a chief executive, you had 2 houses. 6 months after you got the appointment, you have 6 houses. And projects that you highlighted that were going to be executed were not executed. Nobody asked you why and how they were not executed, and how come those projects have been paid for in full. When and how much are you making that before you became the chief executive you had 2 houses? Now you have
6.
No, you have 6 plus 2, which gives you 8 houses. Nobody is asking you what was your salary that will enable you to even build one more. Talk about 6 additional houses. Because we don't ask, so nobody tells. It is just assumed that if you're a chief executive, those houses will just manifest.
But we do have some leaders that don't like being questioned. They don't like being asked.
It is important that we ask questions. The present administration, President Buhari himself, stood up, and he's 73. We revere people's ages around here. He's not a young man. He stood up. He took questions from people that are 50-something years old, questions from people that are 30-something years old, questions from people that are in their 20s and their teens. If the leader of the country can take questions from those people and entertain questions, everybody else should fall in line with him. And anybody that is not falling in line with him is the person that we should point more light at and ask, why are you not answering us? You owe us answers. The president himself, the #1 person in the country, has shown the body language that says this is how we want to go. Go in that same direction, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adefoloju. We'll take a short break. I'll be back in a few seconds. Well, viewers, for those of you that are just joining us, we're looking at the anti-corruption crusade of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration and the role you and I have to play. We'll take a short break. I'll be back in a short while.
For the purpose of emphasis, the issue of fighting corruption by President Buhari is non-negotiable. It is sine qua non to the overall reconstruction of the economy and social systems, which suffered destruction and severe denigration under some previous administrations. President Buhari has told us that he will not be deterred or blackmailed into retreat or surrender.
The amount of crude being stolen and the sabotage being done to installation, the pipelines and other installations, if you see the figures in dollars, you will be amazed.
Very staggering.
Exactly. So we are trying to do that. And then on the corruption, we are trying to get people, especially the technocrats, the civil servants, and the private sector to help us, help ourselves, in the sense that the cost of corruption is so high. We are trying to get revenues from NNPC, from customs and excise to go to the Federation account.
Nigerian people are not left behind. This is what they have to say.
The Nigerian people are dying because of this corruption. The Nigerian people are in a big pain. No food, no work. Today I'm a victim of corruption. I did job for Imo State government since 2007. These are the documents that have not been paid. Since 2007, up to today, they are owing me the sum of 900,000 naira because of corruption. The then chairman asked me to give him 30% of this money. I told him I'm not giving you even 1%. That was why till now this money has not been paid. This is the conduct of corruption. We want the government to do everything humanly possible to bring these people to book. Without that, corruption will kill this nation. We are happy in the person of PMB. We are happy because we've gotten a savior. We want all Nigerians to support our president.
I see him as a messiah that has come to revamp this country. Why? Because if you look at the sectors, because Nigeria is a mono economy, if you look at the key sector like oil sector and some other valuable sector, you see that they have really messed up the whole thing. Because I see him as somebody, for what he has been doing now for me, to me personally, it's a right step in the right direction and a square peg in a square hole.
Corruption, in my own simple definition, is an ability to take what did not belong to you. I think it's a corruption in my own small definition.
So are you corrupt by your definition?
Well, everybody in my own simple logic are corrupt, but it depends on the level. The man, Buhari, is a saint we have been looking for a long time.
And at 55, we're fighting corruption.
It's a sign to show that we are conscious of what is happening in our environment and we want a clean society. And that's the reason why we should fight corruption, even at this stage of our life. Because corruption have led to a lot of problems for us in our economy, in our education. I'm a teacher, for example. If you look at how a lot of dilapidation in school system and even low standard of education today, all of it can be tailored to corruption. And so if we don't deal with it, we will end up crumbling at the end of the day.
To me, corruption is a broad-based term, or a term actually that is hydra-headed in definition. But to be laconic with this, I look at corruption as any practice that is antithetical to probity, that is not in tandem with probity. That is what corruption is all about. Anything that is not morally justifiable, anything that is not judicially acceptable, anything that lacks moral credibility, to me, that is what corruption is all about. I don't say I am corrupt, but one thing we should not forget to understand, in answering this question, we must actually look at all the ramifications of what a man does. Let's take, for example, now, when you say one is corrupt, you can even see that at the family level, there are things people do that can be corruption and things of that nature. So you cannot see somebody who is completely corruption-free in these operations, except maybe somebody from another planet, from Pluto, from Jupiter. You don't have human beings there. So to a greater extent, there is this tendency to be corrupt among human beings. There is this capacity for corruption to actually not just to kill us, but annihilate us as a people. Come to think of it now, all the revenue that has accrued to the Federation account over the years, the question we need to ask ourselves, were they judicially used, right? Were they used to the betterment of the generality of the people?
You're welcome back, and to those of you that are just joining us, we're looking at the anti-corruption crusade of President Buhari's administration. And in the studio, I have with me the political analyst, an economist, and a public relations consultant in person of Mr. Adefoloju. You're welcome again, Mr. Adefoloju.
Thank you very much.
What does it take for one to be corrupt? I mean, is there anything in our culture that makes us susceptible to corruption?
We have a beautiful culture. We have chosen to misinterpret our culture. When you are placed in a position of authority, you have a responsibility to the people that have placed you there. Because we have misinterpreted our culture, we see ourselves, when appointed to or elected to positions of authority, as bosses.
Not leaders.
Not as leaders responsive to the people. When you are a boss, when you perceive yourself as a boss, in the right context, you are a servant. The welfare, the well-being, the house and the wives of the people that have sent you is your paramount concern. It is not the well-being and the how-to-do of your tribe.
Where you come from.
Where you come from, or your immediate family. You will work tirelessly for the people, not just for your family or your tribe. Because we have misinterpreted it, we are highly susceptible to being corrupt. Because nobody will ask me, how much am I being paid as an appointed official? They will just expect me to solve all Ekiti people's problem, starting with my immediate family and all the people from my immediate town.
Because you're from Ekiti.
Because I'm from Ekiti. They will quickly forget that I'm elected or selected as a Nigerian to solve Nigerian problem, a particular Nigerian problem. That should be my focus. My focus should not be my family and my tribe and my town.
So regardless of where you come from, when you are given position of authority, you are there to serve.
You are the servant of the people of Nigeria. that is your focus. In fact, you took an oath that you will serve Nigerians. You have not taken an oath that you will serve Ekiti people from a particular local government. Neither have you taken an oath that it is only your immediate family that will benefit from this commonwealth. It is commonwealth. It is not the Adefoloju's wealth. It is Nigerians' wealth.
So going back to my question, that explains where corruption stems from?
Corruption in our own scenario stems from the fact that we do not see ourselves as serving our people. Because if we were serving our people with these enormous resources at our disposal, we have more than enough to serve our people. But if you look at the staggering amount that are being bandied around, I took 5 billion, I took 2 trillion. If I live 5 lifetimes, I cannot spend 2 trillion. Some people will even wager this opinion that I will steal or I will acquire 2 trillion for generations yet unborn. Well, if I am not my brother's keeper, generations yet unborn are being set up for a mighty fall.
Mighty fall, you call it?
Yes, indeed.
Explain that.
A rich man cannot enjoy his riches if the poor man is hungry. We are blessed, highly favored in Nigeria. We don't have natural disasters like they have in other countries. We have greeneries all over the whole place, and we are importing the same things that God has blessed us with. If we will look at taking care of our brothers, if we connect ourselves, whatever affects you affects me. I am my brother's keeper. If you look at what is being taught in all religion, charity, love thy neighbor as thyself, it's been the most difficult thing that humanity has been grappling with. Because we look at it as, well, I love you all, but I love myself more than every one of you. So I'm going to keep 2 trillion. But I never ask myself, what is the utility value of 2 trillion to me? When everybody around me is shooting at me,
raining curses, the poor ones.
If you look at hungry children, hungry children, women and men, underemployed, underpaid.
Exactly.
What are you doing with 2 trillion?
They would swear, they would curse.
Where are the industries? Where are the jobs? How come we have more guns than we have factories? Why are women and men being arm robbed? Why are we not having masses that have gone to work, that are earning livable wages, that go home and live their lives the way they want to? Therein lies our security. Having our boys and girls working and earning livable wages, being educated, being healthy, employment. Mr. President mentioned that when he looked at the teeming masses of youth, he was scared that if they get it wrong, if this administration gets it wrong, this teeming masses
can protest,
will get out of hands. Meaning, if you take care of your brother will take care of you. Love thy neighbor as thyself, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or any other Hindu, whatever your religion is.
And your brother can come from Sokoto or Cross River, not necessarily Ekiti.
Your brother is from all over the world, all over the country. If you will take care, if you take care of Northeast, take care of South-South, Southwest, North Central, there will be peace and prosperity in the land. That is what Mr. President meant by employment, is another cornerstone of his agenda. And we cannot have corruption and employment side by side. We have to reduce corruption in order for employment to go up. Because the monies that we are stealing and pilfering and cutting away can be used to set up industries, farming, mechanized farming, canning industry, textile industry, hides and skin industries, oil and gas industries in Nigeria. Boys and girls, teeming population of highly educated boys and girls will be working. When they are highly employed, highly well paid, Nigeria now will reach its potential.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adefoloju. This will take me to your parting shot. The issue tonight is looking at the anti-corruption crusade of Mr. President. You have a word for us before we leave?
Yes. We are privileged to have President Muhammadu Buhari as our president. He's 73 years old. If a 73 or 70-something-year-old man or woman can lead the way, we ought to finish the business for him. We ought to support him in more ways than one. We ought to support him with more than our words. We ought to support him with our deeds. We ought to support him with the best of the land. We ought to expose, we ought to reinforce every brick that he puts down. We ought to encourage him. Therein lies the greatness of Nigeria. We've got all the good things here. All we need to do is cooperate with President Muhammadu Buhari and lead Nigeria to the promised land.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adefoloju. I still have lots of questions to ask you, but not tonight. Our time is up. I think we'll have a concluding part of this expose next week. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Well, viewers, we've been talking about the issue of corruption, looking closely at the anti-corruption crusade of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. You and I do know that corruption is a bane of our society, and we must tackle this issue to be able to make any meaningful progress as a nation. The program is Towards a Greater Nigeria. I still remain your anchor, Omotayo. And don't forget, we have a concluding part of this expose next week. Do remember to join me then. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Good evening.